but it's certainly Friday and it's certainly TAW Live, and I'm certainly joined by Mike Bancole, by Sean Rogers, and by Adam Melia. And we're going to talk about the week that was. I've been trying to be best to follow it through a haze of all-inclusive gin and cakes. But, we will discuss what I've read on Twitter. And you lot can tell me what it all means, because I'm confused, Sean. Everyone's left. Everyone's got off. Me and you running it now.
Oh, I don't think it's that bad, mate. I don't think it's got down to them
Mike and
levels.
Adam, then. Mike and Adam.
That's
slightly above.
Much better. Yeah, I might be in the minority with it, and
they're just fucking nerds, aren't they, Sean? Fucking nerds. Get rid of them. Get some more in. There's loads of them.
Aren't we all? All of us have an inner. We all have an inner muckle oven, don't we? One for the kids. I think the only thing surprising about it is the timing. In that, when you look at sort of some of the factual bits of this, I don't think it's. I think objectively, it's not that big a surprise. In that you have a scenario where 3 people, if you include Michael Edwards in this, have spent the best part of 25% of their life, not just their career, like 25% of their life at a football club doing a role. And by all accounts, this Michael Edwards, when he goes, Julian Ward didn't really want the job. They kind of had to persuade him a little bit to do it. And in a scenario like that, when people are getting a little bit of itchy feet, I think after that long in an organisation, it'd be quite common for people to want to move on in any kind of organisation with that kind of turnover. I think the main thing is obviously the timing, and then the obvious soap opera bits that come out of it, which I think are a bit of nonsense and I think a bit over dramatic. But, that's the world we live in, isn't it? So in isolation, a guy who's worked 25% of his life at a club with a young family, and even people lower down the ladder in the recruitment and scouting setup have been burnt out at Liverpool. There's been quite a bit of churn lower down because of long hours, stress, burnout, all the things you'd expect in an organisation. So it's naive to think that the senior people aren't suffering a bit from that. And then I think the main thing here is CV protection, because there's 2 chapters to this for me. There's 2016 to 19, and then you got 2019 to 2022. And I was uncomfortable when everyone started knowing the names of everyone involved, when people started doing conferences, when the press were doing big, juicy biographies, and there wasn't exactly a cease and desist letter going into the journalists to stop them. And I would do exactly the same, because most men would kill for significance. And I would do exactly
imagine.
I would do exactly the same as what they'd be doing. I'd be like at the front of the bus with all the trophies going, I did the Control-Alt-Delete. I got him. I sorted all the tech out. But I think when you start to get on that kind of a pedestal, I'm not saying they did, but there's a risk that some people go risk averse in that situation. Because if you start getting any transfers wrong, all that good press doesn't quite look so good. And then combine that with potential ego and other things. And that's complete. I just think when you start going public like that, I think there's a risk that it can go. And when Klopp came out in the summer and said, I'm worried about the risk averseness of this, everyone assumed he was talking about FSG. And that confuses me, because Mike Gordon and FSG's attitude is, there's the money. You guys bang heads, and then come back to Mike Gordon and I'll get you a quick yes or no from Boston. That's the way this rolls. So there's your money. If you want more, you just do some sales, and that's it. So when Klopp talks about risk averse, I don't think he was talking about FSG myself. That's complete speculation. I don't think he was. So I don't think that much is going to change. To sum up, I'm conscious I've just waffled on for ages, but Fallows is head of recruitment, Hunter's the head of scouting. They've got a machine that's built. And I would much rather someone who's feeling burnt out and going, this isn't for me, say now. Because 1 year into a 3-year contract, he could just sit this out and get bought out. So, it's always about what happens next. And what I would say is some of the commentary, I think, coming out of this, that, oh, it's Klopp and Linders, and Klopp and Linders have started rattling, like, I think that's complete and utter nonsense. The idea that Jurgen Klopp and Pep Linders have only just now started throwing names into the ring for potential signings, it is utter nonsense. Buvac would be that. This is a scenario where people can throw names, anyone can contribute, and everyone will pool their resources then to examine the options. That's the way it always was, and it's the way that it is. But what you have is a manager and a consortium that loved the Real Madrid Tottenham model, where they had the same squad, and we got into a situation where we had a very strong squad and team, and I think Klopp and FSG wanted to keep that in place. So there's always going to be friction. There was in 2016 and there was in 2018. And you know, like all of you guys know, everyone listening will know, like if you've got a marketing team and they're not having a daily row with the head of finance, you're doing it wrong. Like that's, you know what I mean? There's got to be a healthy friction. And then the CEOs and people make sure that doesn't get out of hand. And I don't, Neil Jones's piece as well says there's nothing like friction wise on this, so I'm quite relaxed about it, to be honest.
How are you, Mike, as a man who's of significance, doesn't need to throw yours around at all? How are you feeling about it all?
I don't know. I feel like less at ease than Sean does, just because I think this club's just in a state of real flux at the moment. And we've gone from a period where there was such stability. Everyone knows the names, Mike Gordon, Ian Graham, all these people. We know these people. They've helped us get success. And now we're in a position where Mike Gordon's left the club. His replacement's leaving the club. The person who's kind of put together the sports science department, I think it is leaving the club. On top of that, I think you have to remember the context of the season, and the season where we are at the moment isn't where we want to be as a club, where I think 7th in the table. So all of that just leads me to feel uneasy. And it's partly because we've been blessed with like having this kind of amazing internal process at the club and these key figures at the club who brought us success and took us to the mountaintop and took us to build a squad that got 99 points and 97 points and won everything there is to win. Any sort of change from that, kind of those people, is something that's going to make a lot of fans just feel a bit uneasy because, you know, these key players, you've read all the books about them, you've read all the articles about them, how amazing they are, how brilliant they are, and now all of a sudden they're all gone. And like, John, you returned from your holiday, like, you know, the meme with the pizza box where the guy's gone into the burning house. That's you. You just come back and everyone's just disappeared. You're like, what the hell's going on?
That's just the upstairs in the office.
Exactly. So it's like, what's going on? So for me, it's just like, on top of that, the club's being sold. There's just so much going on all at one time. Like, if this happened over a period of like maybe like 2 or 3 years, you'd be a bit like, okay, fair enough, that happens. But it's just all so much in one go. And I guess we'd have to speculate as to why that's the case. Like, I don't know why all of this is happening in one go. Is it because the sales closed? Is it because there's some kind of internal conflict? All of this is just speculation at this point. But I don't feel that like calm about it. I just feel a bit like there's a bit of excitement because I have like this kind of Rob Gottman instincts of like, okay, let's see what happens next. Who's going to take over? Who's going to come in? All of that stuff. But I'm also a bit like, this could go like badly wrong. We could get like some people who are incompetent involved. We could get some people who don't know what they're doing involved. Like, I don't think we will, but like anything's possible at this point, right? So yeah, let's see what happens. But I don't feel that easy about it. I feel a bit slightly anxious about it because change isn't always good.
As a man who's always slightly uneasy, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
How are you on the Gutman scale from Gutman to Gutman? Because he's on his own, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
he go this way and that.
I'm quite similar to Mike on the Gutman scale, actually, where I can't help but think excitedly about the future, no matter even it's like, you know, on the edge of a precipice. Like that's a good looking precipice, tell you what. But yeah, no, I do have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm sort of delighted at the timing. You know, it's great that we've got this to talk about. Otherwise, it's just the boring old World Cup. But I've there's a few things. So I'm going to park the ownership thing because I think that thinking that it's something to do that this is happening because of the change in ownership. I think that's just too complicated as another facet to throw in for my mind. So like to simplify things. I think there's a case to say that this is actually not bad timing because the World Cup is on. there's been a couple of clubs looking to change management and change things, and they've picked now, and you can sort of see why. If that is the case, that there is a little bit of forward planning involved in it, then you'd say that it might go back to the thing that Sean mentioned in the summer, kind of Jurgen's about face, change of mind of how he felt about the risk taking around midfield recruitment. And if you think along those lines, it's kind of like game theory. Then you might say, well, maybe they got the sack. Like maybe people have not got the sack, but maybe there's been feathers ruffled one way or the other. Things aren't right. It's been a bit of a shit show, that last transfer window, and someone or other has said it's not good enough. We need to change. So I think that's one way of thinking of that something may have happened along those lines, and it's just being sort of painted amicably, and we've said we'll time it for here, but that is kind of like that was the ruction. The other thing that I suppose it could be, and I think Sean hinted at this as well, which and as Sean said, I'm sort of less likely to feel this way, but that since 2019 ish, since we won everything, there has been a change in our methodology, and it's kind of like only become clear as we've kind of as we look back over it. But there was the era of Robertson, Wijnaldum, Matip, like getting lads that were like a bargain, and you sort of think him, from a relegated team, blah blah blah, that sort of thing, or a free transfer, and they just sort of we'd squeeze so much out of them that you couldn't kind of believe that the level that they could achieve, and that may be that it may be that you can't do that forever once you get to a certain point anyway. But we did that, and we improved every season. It was fantastic. That was when we were seen as such an enviable project in terms of transfers. And that really, I mean, I don't think you can argue that stopped. I think that has stopped. And since probably the signing of Thiago, it's been more like we have got one person that we think is good enough to step into this position, and it's like Thiago, obviously, the ones we've got, Canate, fantastic success with these couple of players. Jota, I guess, is one that you could say falls between two stools because he was kind of a surprise, but the ones we've missed out on, Tchouaméni, and now it seems like everyone's like banking on Bellingham, which seems kind of mad to me. But it's almost like a Galacticos sort of way of going about things, which is completely different. And so what I suppose is if you don't think it's that there was a big fallout and somebody's kind of got the hump and gone or got sacked, it could be that they are thinking, well, what's the point in us? You don't need the best data in the world to say Tchouaméni's good or Bellingham's good. I can do that. Me, Adam, or me, Jurgen Klopp, can point at one of the best young players in Europe and say he is good. So there's that. I guess that's the sorts of the things that I'm thinking. I wonder whether it might be one or the other of those sorts of things. But in terms of how I'm feeling about it, I don't feel too bad because I was I've been a bit annoyed at how things have been, not just this summer. In terms of recruitment around midfield, I've banged on about it loads, but we've been asleep at the wheel, and I think this season is kind of chickens coming home to roost a little bit. So I'm open to the idea of a change. I just it just needs to be the right one, as ever.
Yeah, no, as ever. It does throw up an interesting question, Sean. Well, interesting couple of questions about sort of structure v personnel, and we've had this idea in our heads that Liverpool have got this fantastic sort of structure in place, and one person leaves, another person sort of comes in, or and I was left to thinking sort of well, was it that, or was Michael Edwards just really good? Jurgen Klopp's obviously phenomenal, and Mike Gordon was good at sort of tying everyone together, and it also sort of throws the question to me of, well, how many key personnel does any organization have? We start thinking here about, oh, this guy, I've heard so many people very matter of factly say Ian Graham is the best at his job in the whole wide world ever. And I'm not saying that isn't true, but I'm also sort of skeptical of A, how many people know this, and B, that there's not another person somewhere who can maybe just do the job as well. And you think about any organization really, and you say, oh, this person's, the irreplaceable. But it's very rarely the case that there's more than one or two of those, and it's probably Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, and the danger with something like this is you can be the captain of a test team and win the toss and make the wrong call and still win the test, and it gets papered over that you made completely the wrong call, and vice versa. You can put another team into bat and get it wrong. And my point being that whatever Liverpool do next, people will look back on and make that fit this past 6 months, won't they? So if Liverpool go and have an amazing recruitment for the last 2 or 3 years, there'll be people, waving the finger, pointing at, you see, they weren't as good as what you think they were. And then, which could be nothing to do with that. It could be completely different variables and events, and vice versa. I think on the structure and personnel, obviously you need both, because the personnel are the key variable, aren't they? But certainly what FSG have been trying to do from top to bottom since they came in is create a structure where if you unplug one person, you've got a bit of wriggle room if you get the next bit of recruitment for that role wrong. That it's not like, it's not like Jenga and you pull the wrong one out and the entire thing collapses. I think they'll be upset that the Michael Edwards scenario was really good from a PR point of view, was very carefully planned, and they obviously thought they had a succession plan in place. And it seems, looking at Neil Jones's piece, which looks like it's fantastically well sourced. If you haven't checked it out, I'd recommend you have a look at Neil Jones' piece, because it has to be from someone either very close to the scene on this or Julian Ward directly. There's just too much in the piece for it not to come to that conclusion for me. And it seems to be Mike Gordon was the straw that broke the camel's back, that he's pretty crucial to my working relationship. He's 1 year into a 3-year contract. There's no reason for him to say he's resigning now at the end of the season. That's why I do think it's more of a personal decision for him, because there's always friction within departments. There just always is. And that's why I just think a bit more is being blown up. I do think this is a decision that's just made from him, and no one knows what his personal circumstances may or may not be, by the way. So people are trying to read into all the other stuff and pick up on any little bits of potential friction. And then pieces of friction will always have been there, because I think Mike Gordon's role was not to be babysitter. His view was, you two need to come to some form of compromise, and then I go and get the yes and no from Boston. Boston are not interested in our playground antics. They just want me to come to them with a decision. And Mike Gordon isn't going to go, oh, I'm picking Jurgen's side, I'm picking your side. That's just not how it would roll. They've got to compromise in them kind of situations. And there would always have been a friction there, regardless of who it is. And like you say, John, with the Ingrain thing, he might be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I would be pretty confident that all that IP belongs to Liverpool. If it isn't, we need to get Kopi in and sort out the commercial. The Anfield Wrap needs to go in en masse, and we'll plug Kopi in there. We'll plug Gutman and Adam into the recruitment side. We'll get Neil on comms. Do you know what I mean? And it's always about what happens next. And I think the only bad thing for Liverpool right now is that because of the timing of it, it just gives them a bit of nonsense to deal with, doesn't it? That they could just do without right now.
It is tough, isn't it, Mike, to know in terms of the other stuff that's happened at the same time, what is coincidence and what is linked. There's a couple of comments here about the FSG sale. Aidan Moore said, do we think a sale is already underway just regarding Ward and Graham Gowan? In my opinion, I think the change of the ownership comes at the end of the season. And then Gareth Jones saying, are we closer than we think to take over, hence the departures? I'm sort of with Sean that I don't see any link, or was it Adam? Whoever it was. Basically, I'm with Adam that I don't really see a link the more you think about it, apart from the fact that they've both been announced close together. Because if I was unhappy in somewhere and the club went up for sale, I'd be thinking, well, maybe the new owners will have a different strategy and a different idea, and I'll be more appreciated, or I'll be sort of listened to more, or something like that. If I was really happy, I wouldn't, jump the ship just because, new owners might come in and make things slightly differently. I'd wait and see. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think when you interrogate the owner's stuff, it actually doesn't make any sense, because if people are saying, they're really unhappy with the current ownership, as you said, well, surely the prospect of the club being sold and new ownership coming in would be like something that would excite the people who are quote unquote unhappy. So I actually just think it goes back to the point earlier about just so much change happening at one time, and the story of the club in terms of where we are in the league, just all of it doesn't seem super rosy. Like if we'd won 26 out of 27 games like we had one in 1920, and this kind of happened, I think maybe people care less about it. Whereas I think people are thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get left behind. What if we don't finish in the top 4? Newcastle are coming with all their money, all of this stuff. And like now there's a lot of change in Liverpool. Everyone's just kind of like panicking a bit and trying to like draw conclusions that fit their kind of preset agenda as well. So I don't know. I don't think the two things are linked. I actually just think Adam's point was a really cogent point about how the club's strategy has changed in the last few seasons. I think Jota's the kind of only kind of statsy signing we've made in recent years. Maybe Kanate as well. It looks like we are trying to sign superstars. And this summer, I think that was kind of evidence of that, because we clearly wanted to sign Tchouaméni, but after that, there was no obvious backup plan. I mean, I remember, there wasn't kind of obvious backup number 2 option that people were talking about. It was just like a series of names that people wanted Liverpool to sign, but were never actually strongly linked to. So I actually think we have gone to the approach of, this team is so good now that we can only have this small pool of players that can improve us. And maybe the stats people behind the scenes are going, well, actually, like, what are we doing? We're the ones trying to unearth gems.
This is the thing, isn't it? Is like, did they say everybody agrees Tchouaméni's the number 1 choice, and then the stats team are there going, well, there's these 10 other lads, and Jurgen's going no. Or is Jurgen going, well, we can't sign Tchouaméni, who is there? And the stats lads are going, well, I don't know, Artur. Because
it seems unlikely.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that, then they need the sack.
Well, there was the stories around Brendan Rodgers where he went to ask for a centre back, and they said there is none. That was a story, and that was Michael Edwards and the boys. Do you know what I mean?
It does all feel a bit Brendan-y. That's my concern, John. I was positive before, but it does feel quite Brendan-y. Like no club doctor. There's like, there's suddenly the transfer committee versus the manager. I don't know, but yeah.
I'm not having the club doctor thing, by the way. I don't know.
There's loads of doctors.
Well, it's just like, you know what I mean? I reckon I could do that job. Sean was handing out jobs before. Like, I'd be like, is your leg sore? Go and see the physio. If you got a sore, honestly, if you got a sore head, take some paracetamol.
Is it really sore? Is your leg really sore? Go the Spire.
Exactly. Yeah, we got posh doctors on tap. They'll sort it. Yeah, as your arm fell off, or call an ambulance. Yeah, easy. I've sorted it. Mike, you were saying something to me, and Adam have jibbered along.
Sorry. Yeah,
no worries. I mean, I was just reiterating Adam's point about it just feels like there has been a change in approach, and I wonder if that's upset some of the lads behind the scenes. Just because even now, the midfielders been linked to now this summer, for next summer or for next January. Jude Bellingham's the obvious one that every single top club in Europe wants. But also the other big name has been Declan Rice. Declan Rice has been reported a number of times. It's not the usual kind of like young 21-year-old lad who plays in the Bundesliga or who plays in, the French league. We're not being linked to those type of players anymore. We are being linked to players that the average match of the day fan could spot from a mile off. So maybe there is a change of approach. Maybe that is something that makes the stats people feel redundant. But again, this is all pure speculation, so we actually don't really know.
How worried / bothered do you think the manager is, or FSG are at the moment, Sean? And this is pure speculation, as sort of Mike said, but because that's the sort of the key, really. If there's panic on the streets of AXA today, then it does sort of
Kirby.
Exactly, yeah. Then it does maybe suggest something, but I don't know. Is this kind of like run of the mill a little bit? Sometimes big organisations, a lot of people leave together, and other times, people still stay around. Is change a bad thing? Do you want? Can you become stagnant? New ideas are good. How sort of bothered? Do you think the people who earn all the big money are?
I think Mike Gordon stepping away is massive, and that's a problem in the short term, because you don't have to look too hard to see that everyone says he's a really important bit of glue that sticks all of this together.
Yeah. So
that I'm much more nervous about the ownership situation in the future than I am about this. I'm so relaxed about this because you can't have your cake and eat this. The hierarchy of this football club is owners, manager, staff. End of. People running off with themselves, thinking that you'd think if you look online, I had a quick look today, and you'd think we were a data company. We're not. We're a football club. So the hierarchy is owners and manager. And I agree with this, that this is an ownership and management who are on record as loving Real Madrid and Tottenham setup 2016, 2017. All the talk was we're having to bring players in, get them integrated. Tottenham and Real Madrid, we love that model. They've got a settled squad. That's what we need. And it's always more fun climbing the mountain than getting on top. And I don't just mean that on a playing side. I also mean that for staff. You show me, most people in senior management go, can I keep this salary, but go back to what I was doing on the way to get here? Because all this stuff at the top of the mountain, shit, I hate it, right? Take all the bollocks away. Let me do what I was doing 2-3 years ago, but can I keep the salary, please? So my view is, if they're as good at their job as everyone seems to be saying they are, and let's assume that they are, they should have built systems and structures that last time. So if that doesn't work, they ain't as good as they say, as people are saying. If they are, then with sensible recruitment, there shouldn't be a problem. Because what you're looking for, I always think, is you're looking for the people who want to be the next Ian Graham, who want to be the next Julian Ward. It's not like these are Marvel characters where there's only one of them ever invented. You want, for all we know,
we just so happen to have found them all.
There's some.
What's amazing skill?
FSG have got a lab in Lake Como, and they just created these guys by an experiment. You know, I'd be more excited in the people coming in who are really excited and really hungry and bringing the next set of ideas through. And although there's a risk with that, put it this way: Julian Ward is on a 3-year contract. And he's obviously been leaking. I am not resigning because of anything internally. If he wanted to, he could. And he could sit tight and get paid off because he's losing a shed load of dough here. A shed load. And Klopp and everyone have tried to keep him. I suspect because they just don't need to have this headache, John. Right now, they don't need this thing. They could have just done with him sitting tight. And he said that he'll stay till the summer. And that probably renews a bit of life in him. And I just think this is a team that, like you say, FSG and Liverpool have gone, we don't need to do much business. And job fulfillment can't have been massive for them, can it? It's like if you said to me, my job is to find more subway officers. And I'm coming up with loads of places to build a new subway. And Subway going, we don't want any more right now, thanks. Come back to us next year. I can respect that, but my fulfillment of my job day to day isn't that brill, is it? And when they're going to the manager, should we get rid of the fringe lads and do some trades? And he's like, I'm all right, thanks. I'm really happy with the squad. Then just job fulfillment's not there. And that doesn't mean it's anyone's fault. They've been here a long time. They've had enough. Fine. Off your pops. It's just bad timing that we don't need to do the recruitment right now. That's my main thing. And I think the Mike Gordon thing is a much bigger problem that I think this is overshadowing a bit.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree. Okay, we'll have a little bit of a break here. We're going to come back to more of this. I will bring up some of your comments as well. Even the guy who's compared us to North Korea, saying everything's fine, don't panic. I'm not quite sure we've gone that far. But hey, all opinions are valid. But before we get into more, we're looking ahead into the future, what this all means. Can a manager have too much power? You know, is there such thing as a perfect structure? All the big questions answered. I'm not going to say answered well, but we're going to answer them. We have some inserts. Well, it's just one insert this week, actually. We're doing a piece of work at the moment along with Nivea Men on men's mental health. And so this is the start of that. There's also going to be some videos. One came out today and hopefully another one next week. But you're going to hear me, if you listen to this as a podcast, speaking to Ben Akers, who's co-CEO and co-founder of Talk Club. And then we'll be back to answer more big questions about the future of Liverpool Football Club. I never know what to do with those. We'll just get going. Okay, to go. There we are. Hello, everyone who's listening live. You get me not really know what I'm doing. Okay, back with Adam Melia, back with Sean Rogers, and back with Mike Bankole. Just before we get on to all the big stuff, I do want to let people know who haven't seen that we've got a really big Jurgen Klopp documentary happening over, well, if it's over the next few months, actually. We've got 3 parts coming out in December and then 2 more to follow, I think in spring. of next year. The team have been working really, really hard on it. Hopefully, people haven't noticed too much. Hopefully, the normal, if you like, content has been as wonderful as ever. But over the last sort of 6 months or so, we've been working really hard on the Klopp documentary. It's going to be coming out as video. Part 1 will be on YouTube, and then after that, it'll be for Anfield Wrap video subscribers. I've literally just watched part 1, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's across Germany, it's across different parts of the world. It involves people you know, it involves people you don't. 35 interviews in total, and everyone here is really excited about it, and we're really excited to show you. There's a couple of trailers to whet your appetite on our social media if you want to have a little look. But episode 1 will be out soon on YouTube, and then 2 more episodes in December for subscribers, and then the final 2 next year. But we're really happy with it, and we're sure you'll all be excited as well. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. We'll go back on terms of the week that was for Liverpool. And I want to ask you, I'll start with you, Adam, this idea of a perfect structure, if you like, because people are a little bit worried about us going away from what sort of made us successful. Sporting director used to be a little bit of a dirty word in England as recently as around 15 years ago, and then it became sort of the only way to run a football club. There's a little bit of talk now about Jurgen's gone power grabbing as part of his latest contract, and has maybe got a little bit too much, how much say he should have over recruitment. What have you made of that sort of discussion, and do you think there is a right or wrong way to run a football club from a footballing sense?
I think there is more than one way to skin a cat, probably. I don't think I'm never quite sure how much to believe with Jurgen. I do think he tells pork pies and sometimes, but generally I think it's one of those things where if he's telling us a lie, it's always with the club's best interest at heart. So you don't mind, and it sometimes just takes a little while to kind of unpick what it is. So I mean, with him taking more control, I sort of don't buy it. I kind of think he's always, from what I've heard, and from transfers we've seen over the years, I don't think any of them have ever come in without him saying, yeah, okay. I think that there's been talk about him kind of needing to be convinced about a couple of people. I think Mane was one of them, where he wants someone else, and then he was talked into Mane, but I don't reckon it was a big argument. I think that the system has worked really well, and that I think that there's definitely been, as I said before, some more friction recently that's linked to a few things, being really good anyway, so it's more difficult to find these players, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just the pool tightening, more competition between other teams that are doing the same thing as us, copying us. But yeah, I don't see it. I have seen the criticism or the speculation that Jurgen and Pep Linders are kind of decided to sideline the data analysis and the scouts. I just don't see it, and I think it kind of, why I started talking about Klopp's pork pies, is that it's sort of a classic thing where I think he maybe is shouldering the blame for things because he feels like that's the right thing to do. He doesn't want to be saying, oh yeah, it's a bit mad how they're all leaving. So I think the truth only ever really comes out once everything's fine again, and I'm confident we will get there. So yeah, I mean, it kind of gets linked to late phase Wenger. There are definitely some similarities between Klopp's Liverpool and Wenger's Arsenal, I think.
Yeah.
And I kind of that when I've sort of read that, I've sort of thought, well, I can see why people are saying that, and I hope that isn't the case, because I do think I do think that there's, as I say, similarities. I think Wenger did take a lot of heat off their owners for years and years, but it was a completely different thing. He kind of seemed to just get tons and tons of players. The squad was massive, and it did feel like a manager that was deciding, pretty much calling all of the shots about a transfer. And if you just leave it to a manager, they're going to say, well, yeah, I want lots of players, please. It does feel as if there are still, constraints, even maybe too many constraints, around our squad. If you just ask Jurgen in the summer, about midfield, I don't think he would have said, well, yeah, I've got like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, and so that's fine numbers wise. That's absolutely fine, because it hasn't always been pure numbers, has it? And once the season starts, they're kind of like not available again. So I think that we will. I'm confident that we will get there, and that the structure won't be massively different to how it was. I quite like Sean's point that he's made a couple of times, really, about it could do with being a bit more anonymous. You know, having Klopp as the figurehead for all of our signings is absolutely fine. We don't kind of need to know who the superstar nerds are, but behind the scenes in their Spider-Man masks or whatever there is that they're doing, and. If we just have all Brighton's, but just pinch Brighton's ones, some of their players, and everything will be fine.
Well, Chelsea have already pinched all Brighton's people.
Oh, have they?
Mike, yeah. So we could go on to you, so we can't do that. But it is interesting, how that doesn't seem to work sort of that often. I've noticed it in the past. Remember when everyone decided Newcastle scouts were the best, and there was Everton signed Leicester's amazing head of
the one that got Mahrez and Kante, right?
Yeah, and he's the magical guy, and then it turned out he was just some fella. So I guess what I'm saying is, should we be concerned that all these fellas rock up somewhere, or is it not as simple as that?
So I'm not really that bothered where they end up, to be honest with you. I mean, all the best to them. If they go to one of our rivals, not all the best to them, but all the best to them in terms of their professional careers and stuff. But it's just the structure at this club has worked so well because it's this institutionalized structure, as Sean mentioned. So hopefully when these people have left the club, we replace them with some really competent people who know their jobs, who know what they're doing, and things can work as usual. But that's not to say that they're going to go elsewhere and all of a sudden deliver success for other clubs, because they might not click in well with that structure there. They might not kind of thrive in their role as much as they have at Liverpool. So I'm less concerned about what they do when they kind of leave the club. I guess it's just more like, who we get in the door and what they do for us and how that looks for us. I do like Adam's point and Sean's point about just these people being anonymous, because it feels like we've known about the internal kind of workings of Liverpool and where we haven't in the past. And maybe that's a good thing, because we've been so successful, there's been way more intrigue than otherwise would have been in these people. But it was a bit weird when Michael Edwards wrote this kind of letter to Liverpool fans saying goodbye. That would never really happen. So these people have in many ways become like celebrities, a bit on the parade with us and stuff. I mean, they're having a good time. I can't begrudge them that, of course, and hopefully they join us in the next one. I don't know, but it's just it does feel like these people have become like these big celebrities, kind of larger than life characters, and I hope it just feels a bit more normal next time. And it's just like, these people who just do their jobs behind the scenes, and they get kind of known maybe later on, maybe they've left the club or something. But it does feel like, as soon as we enter the club, they're kind of, there's a lot of focus on like sporting directors and the people inside clubs. And maybe that's a new thing we need to adjust to as football fans, because they're like, I'm seeing it now with Arsenal, and Edu's become their new sporting director, and he's someone that's obviously used to play for them. So maybe this is just the way things happen now, where the internal, workings of a club become kind of like everyday chat in a pub. Which is new to me, certainly.
On the subject of everyone but Jurgen Klopp keeping their mouth shut, it is an opportune moment to plug our interview with Pep Linders that was out this week as both audio and video for TAW Player subscribers. 30 minutes of Pep Linders with Neil Atkinson. It's really, really good. I would encourage everyone to sort of listen to that. What was I going to bring to you about Sean? You mentioned before about signings and about taking risks, and speed is another thing that's sort of been discussed a little bit recently with regard to Liverpool, and has maybe frustrated Jurgen Klopp in the past. And committees can be wonderful things, but they do mean that things take a lot longer. That is from experience. The more people you have involved in a decision, the longer it takes. Lot to be said for dictatorships. I would say, Sean. And one thing is speed. You make more mistakes, but you get more done. Do you think Jurgen Klopp's up for a bit of a period where he makes more mistakes, but he gets more done?
I would be. I like a committee when everyone agrees with me. So it is ultimately a dictatorship. No, I don't think Jurgen wants that at all. I think that's why Jurgen will have made an effort to keep Julian Ward for three reasons. One, because I think it was working. I think loads of people have forgotten that we nearly completed football this year.
Yeah.
So, like it's not that broken. It's not like this has been. I think the problem that Liverpool have got in terms of Julian Ward as well is contacts in Portugal and Spain, which has been a massive area of recruitment and could potentially be, and also just the fact that he's supposed to be such an amazing guy in terms of his contacts, his personality with people. He's a really good relationship builder. So one thing Liverpool do lose, regardless of the structure, is Liverpool lose a hell of a lot of contacts, I think, with Julian Ward going that someone else will have to pick up on and probably can. But I love talking about, as you know, the 1987 to 1991 Liverpool team. And this reminds me of that. Kenny went a bit too far the other way with it, with loads of mitigating factors. But Liverpool didn't regenerate that squad because it was nearly winning doubles every season, pretty much. Now, if Liverpool had 87, 88, 89 started to get rid of some of the aging players and tried to bring new ones in the short term, they might not have achieved what they'd have achieved, but in the long term, it might have been better. I think Jurgen Klopp and FSG have gone, this is a real squad, 2019 onwards. We let them go over a cliff if necessary. Because I think if years gone by, we'd have started to, say we'd have sold Mane a year earlier, tried to bring someone in. Do you know what I mean? And trade earlier, we might not have had some of the success we've had even last season and came so close to doing. So for me, in terms of Jurgen and his modus operandi, if you like, I think they knew there'd be a fair bit of restructuring to do. And I think that's been over-egged a bit. Like, you are literally talking about midfield, and we're probably talking about two players. So, like, you look at where we are with Kelleher, Gomez, Konate, maybe a top-class young left-back coming through. You look at Trent, Ramsey, the forward line. What, we're 2-3 players away? It's not like 1990 Liverpool where you go, we need 8. You know what I mean? And it's not like 1990 Liverpool where you sign an Istvan Kozma and Glenn Hussein and things like this. Like, Liverpool's recent signings have been really, really good. I just think that Liverpool are in a situation where they're such a good squad that it doesn't need mass surgery. It just needs time.
Can I just come in though, because I was just sort of having the same thought, Sean. I know it does contradict my point, but it's like, I think that's part of the frustration, I suppose, around the midfield, is that it really doesn't feel like it was a massive rebuild needed. We're probably one signing and a not injured Naby Keita or whatever it is that he's doing away from being all right. We were definitely all right last season, but the only difference really was that we had Naby. So I think I do agree, and I suppose it's just that we've sort of sailed close to the wind a couple of times with being nearly not all right, and like, all right, defense wise, I've got no concerns at all, but we definitely had a season where we were more than nearly not all right, and I guess we're there again with midfield, and that's the frustration really. I don't think it is massive rebuild. All of these players, the age of the players isn't so much of a concern really. It's just I suppose it's fine margins at times, and maybe those margins are a bit too fine, and we kind of sail close to the wind. But yeah, it's the frustration is kind of linked to the fact that it wouldn't take too many players to have boxed it this summer.
And maybe that's where Jurgen Klopp's frustration has come from, because he knows how close they are. We're going to have a big chat about the midfield on Monday. So Monday's free show is the midfield question. We are doing these big questions over the World Cup. Planned them when there wasn't much going on. Well, we thought there wouldn't be much going on. So last week's was on FSG. If you haven't listened to that yet, including me, as I say, I've been on holiday. That's homework for me over the weekend. But Mondays that I'm hosting, Sean Rogers on again. We're working them at the moment with Neil Dockett and Neil Jones. I'm going to have to be on it Monday morning, 11 o'clock. That is going out as audio and video. Loads of great stuff next week. Really looking forward to it. Obviously, all building up to that Jurgen Klopp documentary I mentioned before. But just to finish up, the other thing that's come out this week, and I'll start with you, Mike, is Manchester United being up for sale. It's interesting that it quickly follows the news of Liverpool. Again, you don't know what's coincidence and what is linked. But does it feel like bad news for Liverpool? There's only so many billionaires to go around, even less sound ones. Or do you think it's sort of business as usual, and we'll all find our knights in shining armour eventually?
Yeah, I think we'll all find our one the love of our lives. We'll all find our partners, I'm sure. But no, I just think for Liverpool, United have been up for sale for I think people in the know would know United have been kind of up for grabs for a number of years now. I think it's been one of those open secrets that, you know, obviously they've made it public now, and for reasons, you know, we can kind of again try and deliberate as to why they've done that. But United have been up for grabs for a number of years, and look, you know, I don't think it affects us in many ways, because I think for both sets of owners, the Super League was really massive, because it was that big kind of cash injection maybe they needed, or they felt they needed, to compete against the likes of City, Newcastle, Paris Saint-Germain long term. And I think both sets of owners have realised maybe that they don't want to and can't compete with those kind of owners, and would much rather just kind of like cut their losses and move on to something else. Kind of like, they are at the end of the day venture capitalists, right? So they'll move on to something else. So I don't think it affects us too much. I just think it's interesting for United, because a lot of their fans, I've seen a reaction from their fans, it's just pure euphoria compared to where we are as fans. I know FSG just split opinion. If you're on Twitter long enough, you will know FSG most definitely split opinion. So there were some fans that were euphoric when the news about FSG selling the club came out. But I think with United fans, because they've been in such a place where they haven't won a league title in my adult life. So I was 17 when they last won a league title. So yeah, United haven't won a league title for a number of years. They've not won many trophies of note for a number of years. So any change for them will be treated with a sense of, yes, let's embrace this. Whereas I think for us, it's a bit like, well, we've won everything with these people. Where are they going? So yeah, I don't think it affects us. But I mean, I'm intrigued to see what happens with United, because Gary Neville's giving it the big talk every single chance he gets these days about the Glazers need to go, and that's going to solve United's ills, and that's going to help them get back. So let's see if the Glazers going is as simple as that, and they get new owners in and things are going to transform. But I wouldn't be too worried. And I ultimately think different owners will kind of take over the two sets of clubs. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if United were owned by some kind of like Saudi ownership, or some kind of like maybe some kind of sports washing project. I think that's less likely with us, given the kind of Spirit Shankly voice that we have, and just I just think as a set of fans, and look, not all of us are unified in our kind of disgust against, you know, sports washing or any of those things, but I think as a set of fans, we just wouldn't really stand for it. There would be like huge uproar, similar to the Super League, if not on a bigger scale. So let's see what happens with both clubs. But it is interesting that the two biggest clubs in this country and two of the biggest clubs in the world are up for sale at the same time. And the kind of like taking my Liverpool hat off for a second, just as like a football fan, that is interesting to see what happens with both of those two kind of historic institutions.
Yeah, it's funny because the United story comes out later than the Liverpool one, Sean, and so it's easy to think that, well, you know, United was influenced by Liverpool, but as Mike says, the fact that United have probably been on sale for longer, it probably means that actually the opposite is more likely to be true. I think, you know, FSG and the Glazers are closer than any of us would like them to be. Personally, I've still not forgiven our owners for having a statement signed by a Glazer on our club website. That was almost as bad as the European Super League for me. The fact that that's how they announced it, with a statement signed by a fucking Glazer on our club website. Oh, sorry, I've got angry again. Sean, talk.
But when you mean the Glazer family, not like, you know, UPVC fella.
I think it was Joel. I was trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Joel Glazer who signed the statement saying that we were joining the European Super League on the Liverpool Football Club official fucking website. Sorry, Sean. I was making a point where I think one of the things that's influenced FSG is not just the Chelsea sale. It's not just the fact that the City are doing away, you know, whatever the want and making up sponsors with mad CEOs and stuff like that. I think there was probably a little bit of a, well, if United go to the Saudis as well, we're really fucked.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to know. I was having this chat with Dan Morgan, and I think Dan was
what
saying
job
to
does
me,
Dan get at Liverpool? Sure.
Dan Morgan. Oh God, well, what couldn't he do?
Turn us on to anything.
That's the bigger problem, isn't it? It's like a beauty parade for Dan. You know,
I think he could be an actual Glazer if he wanted to be.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think there's loads in. His view is that Newcastle and the Saudi Arabian deal, the City's one thing. The Saudi deal with Newcastle has probably shaken things up quite a bit across a number of football clubs, I imagine, and made them have a long hard think. And I also think after the Super League, which is something Neil was quite hot on in terms of picking up on this, in terms of the small print about Liverpool being able to broadcast their own games. And I think that it's not Super League so much for me. I think the Glazers and FSG are like, can we be bothered waiting this out X number of years until we get control of our own media rights? Because that is the game changer. And I've got no doubt in some way that will come, but it's not going to happen very soon. So you then have a load of other factors like the pound against the dollar and the people going for the Chelsea sale. And obviously American franchises are really difficult to get into. So people might be looking over here. And also both clubs have always been up for sale. They've just not listed themselves officially as being it. So yes, they're pushing for a sale a bit more. But let's not be naive. If someone comes along with a check big enough, we're all for sale, aren't we?
Yeah.
So not just them. I think it'll be interesting. The interesting dynamic is that between the clubs is that Liverpool are debt free and got the stadium problem, and it'll be interesting to see. But Liverpool are saying all the right things about wanting a bit of legacy and the ethics of who the new owners are. I mean, let's see the proof's in the pudding on that one. Because what are they going to do? Say the opposite publicly? Of course they're not. You get the impression with the Glazers that ruthlessness, like, is their key strengths in top Trump owners. So you wouldn't, in terms, it might not be quite the same owner pool that both clubs are fishing in potentially.
Yeah, looking for ethics. No, money down, very much. Listen, we'll leave it there. We've all got homes to go to. Have a lovely weekend, whether you're watching football or you're getting out and about, whatever it is you're doing. I'm sure nothing will break between now and Monday, but we shall see. But in the meantime, thanks a lot to Adam Mealy, to Sean Rogers, and to Mike Bancole. Up to